much further than the normal greeting. She pours the entire bottle of costly oil on Jesus' head. You know, some of those at the table we reread, they were indignant. They said, why waste such expensive perfume? It could have been sold for a year's wages. So now you know it was way more than $3,235. A year's wages. How much you guys would make in a whole year? That's what she dumped on Jesus' head.
Wow.
And they scolded her harshly. I'm sure some of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
Some of us can relate to being scolded when we just are trying to do our very best.
Yeah.
Being criticized or ridiculed when all we're trying to do is our very best. All she wanted to do was her best. You know, it says, Jesus replied, leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? She said a beautiful thing to me. Jesus saw the beauty in this woman's sacrifice. He saw her on a deeper level. He saw her heart. He saw her spirit. He saw her. I have so many times in my life and so many times meeting with other women have I heard them say how unseen they feel. Unseen by family, unseen by their husband or by their boyfriend or by society, unseen by their employers. We live in a world where we can very easily be unseen, but Jesus saw her. I hope that this evening you can put a smile on your face, knowing that Jesus sees you on a deeper level. He sees what's in your heart, and he loves you. Some of us were like, we want Jesus to see our heart because in our heart are good things. And then others of us are like, I hope he doesn't see my heart because I don't want him to know what's going on there.
Right.
But I'm here to share with you, Jesus sees your heart, everything that's in there, and he still loves you.
Wow.
He said,
There it
leave
is.
her alone. She's done a beautiful thing. Man, it feels good when someone sticks up for you, right? When someone's got your back. Never mind Jesus, the Messiah, King of the world. He's like, leave her alone. And I can't believe they said she wasted it. She wasted it on him. But that's how indignant we can get. You know, Jesus saw her differently. Jesus sees you differently.
Yeah.
Jesus sees you beyond your labels, beyond your letdowns, beyond your past, beyond your traumas, beyond your sin. But he also sees you beyond your accolades, beyond your education level, beyond your yearly income, and beyond your resume.
Yeah.
Jesus sees you, and he chose you. In a room full of critics, this woman was enamored by Jesus. It was as if it was just her and him alone in the room. You know, this reminds me, the only time I can imagine this is when my husband proposed to me. We were on a bridge in Boston, and I thought it was just him and I. We were waiting for a couple to go on a date with. And then we're praying, and then all of a sudden he grabs my hand and he turns me around, and we're like this on a bridge. And then he turns me around, and all of my friends and family from the church are all behind me, like 50 people. I'm like, I thought we were having this very special alone moment, and then I turn around and it's like everybody's been watching me this whole time, listening to all of this cutesy talk that we're having, you know? And that's the only time I remember being alone, but actually being in a totally crowded park, a crowded city. But I was alone with my fiance. And that's what this woman was feeling. She was in a room, even a room full of critics, but she was totally alone with Jesus. One of my favorite scriptures, and many of the young ladies in this room know, it's Isaiah 54:5. They're already saying it. For your maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name. The Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer. He is called the God of all the earth. This was her heart. She knew who Jesus was, that he was God in the flesh, that he was her maker, and that he was her husband. And she had her eyes fixed on him. She was not fazed by the opinions of others. In a room full of critics, she was alone with Jesus. And my hope for each of you guys tonight is that in a room full of women, we're not critical of each other, we're supporting each other, but in a room full of women, that you'd allow yourself to be alone with Jesus, even if it's just for this little 30-minute lesson. You know, as we jump deeper into the text and we learn about Mary, I also want to let my hair down a little bit and be real with you guys. So, can I be real with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 3 things that I believe Mary was chosen by God to be remembered for. And also that each one of us were chosen by God to be remembered for.
Come on, Shauna, this is awesome.
The first one is remembered for her holy heart. Remembered for her holy heart. The word holy means set apart or devoted to the service of God. Mary was devoted to God. You know, as I studied Mary in the scriptures, she was so devoted. She was unwavering. She looked to Jesus to fill her heart, even through the death of her brother Lazarus. She stayed devoted to Jesus. Mary understood that she was chosen, who she was chosen by, and what she was chosen for. In Luke 10, verse 38 to 42, it's the passage where Martha and Mary and Lazarus are all introduced, and many of us know this. It's a famous scripture. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few are needed, or indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. This is the same Mary at Bethany. And we see that this is actually Mary's character. She was devoted. It wasn't just one time in Mark 14. This was Mary throughout the Gospels. Wow. She was focused on one thing, Jesus. She wasn't distracted by the worries of life. She knew that life was crazy, but that the most important thing was to have a heart devoted to Jesus. Not a distracted heart, but a holy heart. Ladies, tonight, do you have a holy heart? Or do you have holes in your heart?
Come on now.
I'd like to share about the holes that were in my heart and how God called me out of the world to have a holy heart.
Come on.
A little bit about my upbringing is I grew up in a great family, great friends. I played tons of sports, soccer, basketball, tennis, track, gymnastics. I was in student council every year. I was happy with life. I did my best to spread happiness to other people. But when I was 16, in my sophomore year of high school, my heart broke for the first time. I never experienced heartbreak before. My heart broke for the first time when I was 16. My boyfriend of 2 years broke up with me. At the time, you know, when you're 16, you're like, my life is over. That's not my husband now, so praise the Lord. But at the time, you all have been through a high school breakup. It devastated me. The same year my parents got divorced, I was totally blindsided. Came home one day and I was like, where's my dad? What's going on? They're totally separated. And then in the same year, my best friend died in a terrible, super terrible car accident. Drove himself straight into the ocean. And I grew up without religion, very similar to what Nat shared. No religion, no knowledge of God, no prayer, no Bible. I never thought about God. I never thought about eternity. I never thought about anything like that. I went to church for 1 year with my family, but it was really just like a thing to get our cousins together and have some consistency in our life. I went to some youth groups with my grandma, but I never had any religion. I never read a scripture in my entire life. And so when all that heartbreak happened, I had no idea how to deal with it, and I had no idea how to heal from it. But in Jeremiah 17, verse 9, it says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? And that's where I was at. I was like, I am so out of touch with my heart right now. I have no connection to it. I don't know what's in my heart, and I don't know how to deal with my heart. And so I tried to do my best to sift it out and fix it. I tried hardening my heart with pride and independency. Can anybody relate?
Yes. Yep.
That didn't work. I tried numbing out with alcohol and parties, and that did not work. I tried victimizing myself with insecurity and people pleasing, and that didn't work either. But for years, I tried everything that I could think of to fill my heart.
Come on,
and of course, that was just the first time I had heartbreak, but anytime I experienced heartbreak after that, it was just adding on to the holes that were in my heart. And I was constantly looking for something to fill the holes up, and I could not find anything. You know, by the time I was 19 years old, I was serving in the United States Army. I was a full-time college student. I was working 2 jobs. I was living in a house with my boyfriend of almost 3 years. We had 2 cars. We had all the friends we could want. We threw all the parties we could ever ask for. We went to all the clubs. Like, that was my life. I was constantly grasping at things to fill up the holes in my heart. Maybe a relationship will do it. Maybe a friendship will do it. Maybe alcohol will do it. Maybe sex will do it. Maybe the military will do it. Maybe purpose will do it. Maybe money will do it. Maybe education will do it. Everything I grasped at just left me empty.
Come on, Shauna.
Nothing filled the holes up. You know, in January of 2012, after a 3-month total downward spiral, I went from having all of that at 19 to like 3 months later having none of that. So at the total downward spiral, I moved across the country from Massachusetts over the ocean to Honolulu, Hawaii.
Okay.
And it was disguised as a college move, but really it was a total act of desperation to find myself. I was so desperate. And in just 3 months, I lost all my security. No more boyfriend, no more house, no more jobs, no more friends, no more car, no more money, no more stability. And like I said, if you want to have the whole story, we can talk later, because it's a lot. But, you know, here I was, 20 years old, 5,000 miles away from home, unsure of where I would live, where I would work. I had no clue what was going on. $100 in my bank account. Yes, it was a very stupid move, I understand that. I was running away.
Yeah, come on.
I had a heart full of holes. Old ones, new ones. I had all these holes in my heart, but all I desired was a whole heart. And what I found out was that God wanted to give me a holy heart.
Wow. Come on, Shauna.
In Hebrews 4, verse 13, it says, "Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account." You know, the day after arriving in Hawaii, my first night in paradise was sleeping outside with homeless, and every arm, I only had 4 bags, every limb was attached to one of my bags, just because I did not know what was going on. I woke up surrounded by homeless people. I'd never been in a position like that in my life. My only friend on the island didn't show up to pick me up from the airport, and I was like, what am I doing? What did I do? What did I do? And the next morning, my school came to pick me up. They took me on like this little tour of the island. They gave me the flower lace. I felt like a little princess for a day. And then we had a new student orientation, and I met this guy named Ki'ihe. And we instantly clicked. We became friends. And after 2 weeks, he invited me to come to church with him. But he didn't tell me it was church. It was a Friday night, and he said, "Hey, you want to come to this thing with me?" And I was like, "Sure." Thought it was a party. So I was like, yeah, that's my scene. Here we go. I show up, and it's church. But you know what? God knows exactly what you need. God knew a girl couldn't invite me to church, but I needed a guy, because that's where I was at the time. God knew that I wouldn't be even told that it was church, but I had to be told it was a thing, so I would think it was a party. Like, God just knows what you need.
Right.
God knows what you need. Man. So I go to church. I'm weirded out a little bit because it's church, and I didn't grow up in church, and I didn't know what was going to be there. But I had so much fun, and I was so in awe that a room full